Well, first of all, I'm Kimberly Daya. I am the host of the Humanity Unlocked podcast. I'm a walker, and that's just, yeah, there we go. Okay. So example number one, humans, we love to judge other humans, and that part really isn't news. When we judge a person or oversimplify a situation, we tend to do so from our own frame of reference. It is the assumption that we would somehow know better. Why is it that some of us know and some don't? For starters, sometimes when we're in it, we can't see it. Tonight, I'm actually not talking to the ones who are struggling. I'm talking to those of us who judge the struggle based on an oversimplified idea that our behavior around our pain determines the legitimacy of it.
Hey guys, welcome back to Humanity Unlocked. Today we are wrapping season 3 very appropriately with a nod to the first episode we had this season when I announced that I had had a TED Talk. Well, good news, my TED Talk is finally live and I am airing it for all of you guys. In this episode, it's about 10 and a half minutes, and afterwards, Mark and I will close out the episode with a conversation about how season 3 went and upcoming plans for season 4. So stay tuned for that right after my TED Talk coming up next.
Hi, everyone. Oh, I'm on. Okay. All right. So tonight, well, first of all, I'm Kimberly Daya. I am the host of the Humanity Unlocked podcast, and I am here tonight to talk to you all about the topic of judgment. But actually what we're going to be talking about is a special brand of judgment, and it's one that we see appear most often when we're witnessing somebody who is going through a painful situation, seemingly by choice. But before I dive into what that brand is, let me just give you a few examples of what I mean when I say the words by choice. So example number one is, you know what, hold on. I'm a walker, and that's just, yeah, there we go. Okay. So example number one is somebody who is suffering with an eating disorder, and this person could be somebody who is severely underweight or overweight, either case would work. Example number two is somebody who has done fertility treatments for a number of years and was finally able to birth her first child, and now suffers with postpartum depression. And example number three is somebody who is a victim of abuse in their current long-term relationship. So I've just illustrated 3 very different examples, yet strangely, these hypothetical examples will often elicit an eerily similar response from outside critics who hear about them. And it usually goes something like this. So why can't they just diet and exercise? I swear, have some self-control. Or for the opposite example, I can see her ribs. Someone needs to tell her to eat a cheeseburger. So she's wanted a baby for 5 years, and now she has one, and now she's saying she's depressed. Okay, what happened to the I want to be a mom more than anything? If she's in an abusive relationship, it cannot be as bad as she says it is, because why wouldn't she just leave? If it was that bad, she'd be gone, I'd be gone. And by the way, they were all over each other when I saw them yesterday. Okay, so judgment, yes. I mean, humans, we love to judge other humans, and that part really isn't news. What I've just described is one step beyond judgment, and arguably it can feel even worse. It is the oversimplification of an issue. It is the assumption that if we were in that person's shoes, we would somehow know better, or do better, or know how to do better. And maybe some of us would, but have we ever stopped to ask ourselves why? Why is it that some of us know and some don't? For starters, there is such a wide variety of factors that can and often will affect our ability to make sound, healthy decisions for ourselves. Factors like our upbringing, our environment, our socioeconomic status, our physical and mental health, the people in our life, so our family and friends. Which brings me to a quote, maybe some of you guys have heard it by Maya Angelou, and it is, when you know better, you do better. And I started trying to unpack what I think this quote might mean, and I was looking for an example in my own life to share with you, and this is the one I came up with. So, I was married young, not because we we were pregnant or religious or anything like that, but I met my first husband when I was 16. We got married at 20 and we were divorced by 24. The marriage, while it wasn't necessarily miserable, was pretty dysfunctional for a number of reasons on both of our parts. But I didn't know that. I couldn't see it. It was not obvious to me when I was in it. But what's interesting is it was obvious to some because they could see it and they did know better. Years later, we went on to split up and I remarried my current husband, Mark, and it wasn't until then that I could see it. I was able to look back and go, oh my gosh, how did I not see how dysfunctional our dynamic was? Sometimes when we're in it, we can't see it. And nobody can force us to see it until later when our frame of reference shifts and we are given the gift of hindsight. Sometimes we can see it when we're in it, but maybe the path out is a little bit less clear, or maybe it's clear, but maybe attached to that path is a lot of fear, pride, uncertainty, a lack of resources, a lack of education, maybe a lack of support. Tonight, I'm actually not talking to the ones who are struggling. I'm talking to those of us who judge the struggle based on an oversimplified idea that our behavior around our pain determines the legitimacy of it. When we judge a person or oversimplify a situation, we tend to do so from our own frame of reference. And for whatever reason, we all seem to think that everyone else has the same one to work with that we do, which, across the board would just be impossible. To illustrate this, I'm going to give you a fictitious example. It's an extreme one, but stay with me. So I'm a fairly decent writer, took honors English in school. I used to have a column in a magazine, and at one point I was working on a book. But if somebody were to come to me and ask me to write a paper on quantum physics, and if I were being graded on my understanding of that subject, it wouldn't matter how good of a writer I am. I would fail it. Simply because what is common sense to a quantum physicist will not be common sense to me, because I have not had the education or the experience to frame a point of reference from which to draw from in order to write an intelligent essay. Over the past several years, I have had the hardest time understanding why we struggle so much to just hear one another, and it has bothered me a lot, so much so that I launched a podcast last year literally aimed at dismantling judgment. Because we humans, we judge everything, and I am fascinated with our commitment to take multi-layered issues and fit them into black and white boxes. And like most things that we feel strongly about, this fascination of mine was personal. In 2007, so 17 years ago, I lost the use of my extremities. It happened pretty suddenly and inexplicably. I started in my legs. I would go to stand up and my muscles just didn't work. My legs wouldn't hold me. So if you've ever had somebody kick behind your knee causing your leg to buckle, that's what it felt like when I'd go to stand up and walk. A month or two later, it moved into my upper body, into my arms and hands. I couldn't raise my arms up. I couldn't make a fist. I lost my grip. I couldn't hold a cup, a fork, a phone, a toothbrush, a steering wheel. I couldn't dress myself, bathe myself for a while there. Anyway, so this went on for a number of years, and there was good days and bad days, good years and bad years. And for me, during my periods of remission, when I was feeling well, it was like that saying, all gas and no brakes. So when I was doing well, I would make a ton of plans, and like a car that doesn't hit the brakes on time, I would crash for days, weeks, and months in some cases. I eventually needed to be in a wheelchair, and at that point, I really never left my house because, people knew, but I didn't want anybody to see it because the visual of me in a wheelchair just felt like such a wild departure from the me that most people knew. I was constantly up and down. And I know that was confusing for people. And to make it more confusing, I would overcompensate when I was feeling well. And I would, like I said, I'd make all the plans, and I would dress up and do full glam, hair, makeup, all of it when I left my house, just to make myself feel normal and healthy like everyone else. But there was a cost to that, and I think it's that people may have had a hard time understanding, and maybe even in some cases believing what I was going through, because I was like a giant contradiction. I hid behind a facade that I thought was protecting me, but in actuality, it probably wound up sabotaging me. In the end, the choice to hide out at home and downplay in public meant that nobody ever really saw it, which I knew meant that nobody understood. But the truth is, how could they? If they only saw me looking healthy, that was their frame of reference. Somewhere in the middle of it all, it dawned on me that my situation mirrored a broader issue of judgment and oversimplification in society. Because at some point, we are either going to bear witness to or be the subject of, if we have not already, an issue that appears to be black and white. And in those moments, I would ask that we all just pause and consider, is there room for nuance here? Could there be some context that we're missing to help us to, maybe not always to agree, but to start to understand a different perspective? Because if we can do that, we can start to build the bridge that I think our society needs to take us one step closer to realizing that true understanding doesn't always come in the black and white. True understanding often comes in shades of gray. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone, to Humanity Unlocked. It is me, your host, Kimberly Daya. I am here with my husband, Mark, to help me close out this season. We opened season 3 together, announcing that I had done a TED Talk, and today we close the season with the premiere of the speech, which you just heard. And of course, I asked that Mark rejoin me to help close out season 3 altogether. Originally, I had planned for a different episode this week. We had scheduled our resident therapist, Katara Ross, who appears on the show once a month, to come on and discuss one of our topics. But unfortunately, she is sick and needed to reschedule. So we are moving up our final episode of the season to this week, which fell right in line with when the TED Talk got released. Each season runs approximately 10 to 12 weeks, so my goal is to always have 10 to 12 episodes per season. This season is technically only 9 weeks, but I do have something planned for next week that I will announce later in this episode. Just so you guys know, a link for the TED YouTube speech that's on the TED YouTube will be in the show notes. The one I'm showing is my version, which I'm going to talk about. So you can click on that if you're interested. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about the production.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just think the bane of my existence is audiovisual issues. At this point, I don't know what to say.
Sorry about that.
No, I mean, the TED thing isn't your issue. So basically, we had a production team. Okay, so the TED event was held at a high school. Like when I was first brought on, I didn't really know all of the details. I researched to make sure it was legit, which it was, and all of that. I filled out all the paperwork, I signed the disclosures, all that. But it was held at a high school here locally, a nice high school with like a theater and the whole thing, and they have a whole like production department that actually put this on, but it was like high school seniors that put this on. Very impressively, I might add. Like the day of the production, it went all went very well, but the product, being that I am in the audiovisual business, and I'm not going to claim to have like the best product, but I know what I'm aiming for. And this was, unfortunately, I'm in the dark for the first 3 to 5 minutes on stage. You can't even see me. The light's not even on me. And then like the audio shifts really badly. And God bless them. I mean, I'm thankful for the opportunity. I sent off we extracted the audio. I sent that off to a audio engineer to try to repair it. And then we used our video that we took at the event, which was actually better. And we are putting that to the audio. So hopefully we'll have a better product. And hopefully that was a better product that you guys saw. I believe it is. than the one that is up on TED. And then I'm going to actually beg the TED events to replace the one on their YouTube with mine. Don't you think? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah, and you guys will see if you click on the link in the description, you'll see what I mean. Okay, so that's that. Moving on to this last season, season 3. For me, it was so much fun, but it was really busy. I felt like even though it had less episodes than we usually have, it felt much busier than usual.
It was very dense.
Yeah, that's a really good word.
Yeah. You had a lot going on. You had some really, you had some guests that had a lot behind them.
Yeah.
That they weren't your average, person that got referred to us, or somebody that's a friend of ours or something like that. These are people, some of them are professionals in their own manner, in their own world, that what they do full time has to do with the topic at hand. So there is a lot to discuss.
Yes. So like everything, well, we'll talk about it too, but like 2 of them had their own podcasts.
Yeah.
So yeah, I that's a really good word. Dense is it, but it made it more enjoyable. Not more enjoyable. It was a different level of enjoyment because it wasn't anything I was used to and I hadn't done it before. So that was interesting. There was a lot of stress, I think, behind the scenes due to just such a learning curve on the production side that we're not going to bore them with, but it's exhausting. I mean, now that we're up on YouTube, we're dealing with audio and visual and editing and I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So there's so much, I think, for me that wore me out, and towards the end of the season, I felt like I was just dragging to the finish. And we're going to touch on some of the health stuff in a few minutes that I just found out about. But before we talk about also our plans for season 4, what I would love to do is run through, if you're up for this. By the way, I haven't prepped Mark for any of this, so he doesn't even know what we're doing. I just asked him to show up. What I'd love to do is run through the episodes that we had this season and just give our thoughts on each one.
Okay.
Originally when I launched Humanity Unlocked, I thought I would do like a montage of like clips at the end of every season, but I think sometimes it's this. I kind of like the idea of like discussing each one and just giving my takeaways and your takeaways. Yeah. Okay, so our first.
Me too.
Our first episode for season 3 is when you and I sat on the couch it's before we built our beautiful, we built a studio this season too. So that was also added into the mix. We sat down and we announced the topics that I wanted to do for the upcoming season, in addition to announcing the fact that I had done a TED Talk that at the time wasn't out. That was the first episode of the season. The second one was Jennifer Fink with the discussion about Alzheimer's. She has a podcast of her own. So again, that's one of the ones I was speaking about. I really felt like with that one, I had to have my ducks in a row. I had to do my research. It was more than just asking questions about someone's experience. So that makes sense.
Yeah, you got a lot of views on social media on that one as well, right? That was a surprise. Like
You're right.
It didn't. It was like, you look up and like, wait a minute, what are all these numbers?
It was a happy surprise because I didn't know how that one would perform.
Yeah, because it's not something that you and I deal with on a normal basis, right? Like, although it does affect our family.
Yeah.
We have a family member.
Families.
Yeah, and many families. But a lot of the topics that we often deal with, it's like, I don't know. This one, it feels generally a little bit further away, because it is such a specific and isolated group of people that deal with that. And yeah, it has touched our family for sure, but it felt different to me. And but to see the response to it was surprising. So it makes me feel like, oh my gosh, like
there's interest.
There's really interest in some of these really specific like areas of life that maybe you don't encounter on a daily basis. But
people are probably searching for that Alzheimer's, advice or info or whatever on their social media.
Yeah. Like it's something that's never occurred to me. I guess that's why I'm more taken aback by it and talking about it now. It's just it literally it's not something that I've given thought to, some space in my mind. But now that you think about it, you're like, gosh, what else is out there? What else do people want to talk about and hear about and just have these day-to-day discussions?
And that's always the goal in between seasons. It's like sort of to look back and, again, I always say edit, refine. Like, okay, what did we learn? What did we take away? What do we want to bring forward? With that one, actually, I just had the idea because the humanity aspect when you have an aging family member or whatever, friend, neighbor, whatever. Sometimes they lose their humanity in the process of aging and developing Alzheimer's. It's like you forget that this is actually a person. And I don't know if I read something or watched something that just made me go, huh. Like, and they probably mentioned something like that. And I thought that would be a good thing to talk about, because the goal is always to uncover the humanity, even though we didn't have obviously somebody on with Alzheimer's. It was I felt like a good discussion, obviously, nonetheless. So thank you to Jennifer Fink for coming on for that episode. The third one was Katara Ross, where we talked about anxiety. Katara is our resident therapist. She comes on once a month. We pick a topic. She and I decide on a topic, and then we discuss it. We talked about the different types of anxiety and how they manifest. I felt, obviously, this one's relatable. But with this one, sometimes it's tough because some of these topics, there's so much info out there on that it's almost like the internet can be, or YouTube can be saturated with videos about anxiety. So I sometimes wonder if you get lost in the mix. So I'm not sure. It was valuable to me, and I think it was valuable to those who I know watched it, but I'm not sure how much exposure that it got.
I don't know if that really matters, because I think at the end of the day, the Joe Rogan formula works the best, which is just do what interests you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like whatever interests you is what you should do.
Everything interests me. There's really very little that I wouldn't talk about. But no, I know what you mean. But I just, sometimes it's like at the end of the day, I don't want to be like everyone else. I don't want to be like having the same conversation. So my goal is to always put my spin on it a little bit.
That's true.
One of the things I took away from this one, and I kind of went into this one like trying to figure out that during our pre-interview, I kind of uncovered was that, so with anxiety, there's people that go into hermit mode because of their anxiety and they can't act. It's like a freeze response. And then there's the people who can't sit still because of their anxiety. They can't, because they can't be alone with their thoughts because of their anxiety.
Yeah. They need to take action to resolve it or something.
Or they need to take action, like, I guess, to distract themselves. So with the hermit type, for lack of, I'm sure there's a better way to describe. That would be me. I would be the hermit type. It's like you need to just go away. The more you are away from being overly, what's the word I'm looking for? Stimulated, that your anxiety will calm down more. So it's just interesting because sometimes I look at, me I don't deal with anxiety anymore, rarely, but looking at very high functioning people, one of the things that Katara said is a lot of them, it's their anxiety that keeps them moving.
Rubbed up.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's almost like an asset. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, I wish mine was like that. I wish mine
But are they just doing other stuff to distract themselves, or are they doing?
No, they're working. Because if they rest, they get anxiety because, oh my God, I'm not working. Like I can't even enjoy my family. I can't sleep. I
could relate to that.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what I said in the episode. I think Mark has I don't know what I say in the episode or the pre-interview. Mark has low level anxiety that we don't even really talk about.
I totally do.
Yeah.
There's always this like fear creeping over my shoulder, like this boogeyman of like if I'm not moving forward, I'm going to get trapped in this thing. So I need to keep going, because otherwise if I rest too long, then something bad's going to happen. So I need to continuously produce and work to get ahead, because if I slow down, look, it's I don't have a 9-to-5 job. I don't have a salary. I don't have a guaranteed paycheck. So it's either eat or beaten. And that is the world that I live in. Especially real estate.
Yeah, but you can be alone with your thoughts. There's a little bit of a difference there.
Yeah. No. I can be alone with my thoughts, and I'm okay with that. I do distract myself, on my phone or whatever, but it's not a problem like that. I never think about it like I have anxiety, but I act as if I do, I think. Yeah. You're kind of, we could go, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but you're kind of a little more of a worrier too. For sure. Like you, yeah. Okay, so one of these days we'll have to do an episode just on Mark. You guys can get to know him a little better. You can psychoanalyze me. Yeah. Jessica Berry, she was the 4th episode. We talked about going against the grain after 40. We covered so much in that episode. I had a hard time with that one narrow, like kind of getting my arms around it.
because there was so much there. I kind of went into it thinking we were going to do one thing and we ended up doing something else. And it ended up being, I think, better because the conversation, I just think that there was so much covered. I wouldn't even know where to like pin it down at. We talked about obviously her, before and after, like her transformation when she got fit, and then we're going back to school and how one thing led to the next, to the next, to the next. And I said at the top of that episode, I don't do like inspirational, motivational podcasts, but in this, if you might take that away from this one. But really what it's more about is that there's so many people who will not try to start over at 40 because what will they say about me kind of thing. So it really ended up being more about that, which I thought was
that
pretty
a thing?
cool.
Is that a thing where starting, who's they? Like who's the person?
People, because your
peers?
it's like projection. It's like you're showing them what they're not doing kind of thing.
Oh.
It's like when I had an encounter once where when I lost all of my weight, I went from being like 100 and I'm just going to give you guys numbers because I don't care. 5'10", 170 pounds, down to just under 130 on 27 or something like that. And because I competed in the competition, so I got really low. For me, that's really low. And people's reactions were some people were strange. People react strange to like somebody, like it's almost like I don't know, like you're showing them what they could. My trainer, Lube, she's the one that kind of explained it to me. I'm like, why people don't seem to be happy for me, So when I say people, I just mean a select few that really stood out to me, where it was like, oh, I would never do that. Or like, it was just kind of that attitude. Even when I said I was competing, like, oh, I would never do that. I'm just like, well, nobody's asking you to. So it was just it's sort of that thing, or like going back to school.
It was a
thing.
reactive and defensive.
But I didn't even like.
I know, but it sounds like they were like, it was all as if they're reacting to a mirror being put in front of them.
I mean, that's what Lupe said.
Yeah.
I guess, but I never lead with my look at me. Mm-hmm. I'm not, because I'm all, and if anything, I sometimes I feel like I play, and this is where Katira and I are going to do an episode about, I don't want to give it away, but it's going to be about confidence. And it's like, if anything, I sell myself short. I play myself down because I know sometimes it makes people uncomfortable because people are competitive and I'm not. Like I'd rather you win than me because I don't want anybody to be uncomfortable, which that's my own thing to have to get over. But anyway, so we talked about all that, and we talked about, fear of failure. That's a big one that we probably will revisit in the future. So that was a really good episode. I don't think we've seen the last of Jessica, so stay tuned for that.
All right.
5th episode was Boomer Bennett, which fan favorite. He by far best performing episode of the season. Gang affiliation and fatherlessness resonated with a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. When I think of my ideal guest for Humanity Unlocked, I don't think I could handpick a better guest because he kind of checked all the boxes of what I want to accomplish every episode. What were your thoughts?
Oh, gosh. That was my personal favorite.
Was it?
Yeah. All-time person. Because, well, not only is he just such a dynamic speaker, I mean, he could tell stories and he's very captivating and he's got a lot of great energy. But like just what he unveiled a world that I know nothing about.
Yeah.
No, I don't know anything about. Two of us. Yeah, I don't know anything about gang life. I don't know anything about prison life. I don't know anything about all that stuff. And then to go through the redemption process and all of that, it's just like, my gosh, it's crazy. So. It was quite a story.
I was really impressed with his ability to take himself back to that time. He did such a good job, and he didn't try to sugarcoat it, and he didn't try to make it, like, he really just told it as it was. I just really appreciated his ability to do that.
Yeah, the good, the bad, that kind of thing. And there's a lot of bad in there that he he didn't try to sugarcoat it, and I guarantee he didn't talk about all of it. I mean,
no, he did not. He really didn't. No,
not even close. But I think there's a place and time for those kinds of things, and that wasn't it.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't the point, right? The point was
the point was to talk about why people join gangs.
Yeah, why? Yeah, why did he follow that path? We've always said about the podcast, if you were in their shoes and you had the same experiences that they had, the same external influences on your life, would you have turned out the same way, or would it be different? Right.
Well,
And-
everybody just watched my TED Talk, and that's exactly what what I talked about. And it's yes, and that's the question, right? That's the question.
yeah.
And that's what, when I was struggling to know what to say in the TED Talk, you kind of held up the mirror of my podcast, and it's like, well, isn't this what you're trying to do in your podcast? Like, why don't you just do a TED Talk about this? And that's what it ended up being about.
Yeah.
Was if you'd lived this life, who's to say you would make different choices given all of the things I talk about in my TED Talk?
Yes, absolutely, because it's so easy as an outsider just be like, well, I would have done this but I mean, like the formula isn't the same. How you process, things in your mind it wouldn't be the same. It's easy to say that as an outsider with a different kind of mind that's been molded completely separate. But if you were like in the fire, in that pressure cooker, would you have made those separate, smarter decisions? Impossible to say, and probably not.
Yeah, I always say it's about like your frame of reference. We all come from a different frame of reference, and so many things make up our frame of reference.
Yeah.
We see that in marriages too. When you get married, it's like one person behaves one way, and the other person behaves another way, and you have to figure out how to conjoin, like bring together your frame of references to form one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 6th was Katie Holtzen. We talked about postpartum depression. I feel like this was one of the most relatable out of all of them. I had no idea how prevalent this was. I mean, I knew it wasn't uncommon, but I guess I didn't realize how common it is. And I just want to commend Katie, because I feel like motherhood's a funny thing. Like, it's one of the things that women are so protective of themselves and their children. And if you really want to insult somebody, insult them as a mother. Like, that's the way to, you know what I'm saying? So I want to commend her, because we all as moms one of our biggest fears is being a bad mom, is like not being, or screwing up our kids, or like all of the things. Like, we all carry that with us, and guilt, mom guilt, and all the things. We talked a lot about that in season 2 when I had the girls from In the Pink Room on. But Katie like really raised her hand and said, I'll come talk about it. I'll come tell the truth. I'll come tell you that, I hated everything, and I hated my life, and I regretted it. And I made a huge mistake. And she was very raw and real and open and honest. And not only that, she's using her experience to help others. Like, she spreads resources and information, and she was a part of a support group and all the things. So I just really commend her. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to share that as a mom specifically. Yeah. So that one was a great one. Very relatable for the listeners. I got a lot of great feedback on that one. Alicia Anderson was number 7. We talked about accessibility and inclusion. The big thing with Alicia, well, several big things with Alicia, but I met a new friend in Alicia. She and I have become, as I said in the interview or in the podcast, fast friends. I feel like her story is really obviously inspiring and obviously impressive, but it's more than that, because I just feel like she's such an impressive human being. Like, beyond her story, she's just an impressive human being, because I've never been around somebody that has taken so much interest in listening to my story. Like, I don't say that. Well, I say that because I'm used to being the one that's like wanting to dig in and wanting all the details and tell me more. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever had anybody that sort of behaves that way towards me, which is fine. I don't expect anybody to, but I was very taken aback by how much she was like that during all of our meetings. And so very, very impressive human being. I felt very honored that she agreed to come on, and that she, considers me a friend, and that we are continuing on. I don't think we've seen the last of Alicia either over here. She might be back in the future. So
that'll be great.
Yeah, she's a good one, and I think that one also did very, very well.
Yeah, good reason for it too. I mean,
you met her.
Yeah, I met her. Super impressive. The whole story. It is inspiring, and but like you said, it's not about the podcast. Isn't about that inspiration. It's just storytelling. So it's just coming back to kind of who people are and how they're formed, and and what makes somebody persevere like she has.
Why she has the views that she has, or why she I think that, again, if you lived her life, how many of us would change the way we think about so many different things?
So many. And how many of us would crumble?
Right.
I mean, that's the first thing that I would think of. The fact that she didn't is unbelievable. But then, now she's past that phase, then it's like, she looks at the world through a different lens than the rest of us because she is permanently disabled. And, how does the world respond to her and how can she interact in the world?
Yeah. Yeah, she's amazing. I can't wait to get to know her even better. Last one before we get to this one. Okay, very embarrassing. Her name is not Raina. It's Rana. And I did not know this. She never corrected me. Rana, you never corrected me. And I heard our mutual friend Heather, because I'd only met Rana once prior to our pre-interview and then recording. And we just corresponded over DMs and text messages. So I never heard her say her name. And I think, anyway, when I met her, I'm like, oh, yeah, I know you from Instagram. I already knew her from Instagram when I met her.
Yeah.
Anyways, so for the listeners, her name is Rana Akhalil. So sorry about that, Rana. I feel like that's very embarrassing. I wish you would have corrected me, but I hope you weren't offended. Clearly, she hopefully wasn't.
Yeah, she's going to message you back now. She's going to say, no, you had it right the first time.
No, I don't think so. I think no. We talked about look good, feel good, do good. That's her motto. I wanted to do this episode. It was about image and it was about taking pride in your appearance. She comes from Dubai and that whole thing and how different this culture is and like just cultural differences where that's concerned. I wanted to do this one because I feel like I have this weird fascination by the women who feel so strongly about prioritizing how they look on a daily basis, even when they don't have to. And I look at them saying they feel so good when they doing that. And I want to feel that too. I used to be like that a lot, as anybody that's known me for any length of time and you know that was me. Every day of my life, I put on makeup and did my hair and got dressed and the whole thing. And if I didn't, it was very rare occasion. So it's kind of hard to remember, but now I don't, this is where it's like kind of touchy because it's like, I don't know if it changes how I feel when I look better. I don't know if it does. I think part of the reason, now, I like what I see in the mirror when I look better, but I don't know, because I pretty much just get up and like I do my thing or whatever, and then I get right to work. I work by myself at home. I edit. I do my whatever. And I think I feel the same. You know what I think? I think it's the process of getting ready that sometimes adds that skip for me. It's the process of getting ready. It's the process of putting on my makeup. It's the process of doing my hair. It's like, okay, I'm putting on my armor for the day. Okay. I don't know if me knowing I look good is going to change how I feel. And I don't like attention on how I look anymore. Like, I don't want people looking at. Like,
do you think that your energy constraints that you deal with has something to do with any of that process? Like, for example, like getting ready now takes, you have a very limited amount of energy, right? And you're going to have to choose every single day how you expend that energy.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you look at, getting ready as, okay, well, I have to expend energy doing that. So you don't get the enjoyment out of it because you don't have as much energy for other things later down the road.
And I think that's why I stopped years and years and years, however many years ago it was, I stopped like actually putting in the effort to put on makeup every day and like do the whole shebang every day. Because I'm like, because I would, I'd say 80% of the time I'd get ready sometimes for something and then not be able to go because I used up all my energy. This is when I was really, really sick. And I think that, I was trained in the other direction and then I worked so much on, I'm not at all, not one bit diminishing everything that she talked about because I do believe in it. I think that if that makes you feel good, you should do it. And I think, again, there is an element of that does make you feel good. Like the process of getting ready sometimes is when I'm not really white knuckling my way for energy, but it's like, okay, I'm I don't know. Anyways.
I've heard plenty of times in my business where, like, as men, if you work from home, you should go through the process, get ready, put on some nice clothes, put on a suit, whatever. Sit in your car like you're going to go somewhere and then head back to your home office or something, right? Because it gets you in that right mindset of like, this is our armor that we're going to go out and attack today, rather than being in your sweats and making phone calls. No. If you dress up and you're going to be making phone calls, you're going to be prospecting, then you are going to be busy, right?
Yeah.
You are going to be out there. You're going to feel good. You're going to sound different on the phone when you're dressed up. So I think there's a lot of truth from a guy, talking about.
Probably from a woman too.
Yeah.
Do you think that I'm any different when I look? I mean, does it change from your perspective?
From my perspective, not really. I don't see any difference from you with how you are when you are all done up versus not. I think you're always focused on the same kinds of things, which is what you got to do and what you're trying to accomplish in a day.
I think there was such a negative connotation put on it for me. For so many, looking back on it now, there's a negative, because for so many years that was my currency, that was my value. That's what I brought. That's what I could give, because I had nothing else in my mind at that time. I truly, looking back, think, and I think that's why I place little value on it now, because I'm like, oh, that's like the least of what I have to offer, and I would prefer somebody not notice appearance stuff and really listen to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I'm
obviously true. But then, the question is, how does it make you feel? Do you feel better prepared to go out there to go meet people when you are all dressed up? Do you think that your behavior, not even so obvious, but just that inward confidence shoots up when you are better prepared to face the world? Or is it that you just don't have that many opportunities to go out and face the world because a lot of what you do is at home and so on and so forth?
I don't know. I really this sounds really weird. I almost feel more comfortable going, I'm wearing minimal makeup. I had a doctor appointment today. I'm wearing lounge pants, Birkenstocks, and a tank top because I'm not feeling well. We'll get to that in a second. But I almost feel better because this is me. This feels like me, like the other, it feels like there's certain things like I do that sort of help me along the way. Like I get hair extensions and normally I get lash extensions. They're pretty much gone now. And I do a spray tan every so often, not that often anymore. And I do get my nails done now, but, I'm more talking on the daily, like on the every, so I don't like, I almost think women are not as nice to me when I'm put together. Like, I think people are nicer to me when I look like this. I swear to you, I think, and that's part of it. So I'm still trying to work all this out. But I do think for the majority of people, I think there is definitely something to this. I think that it did feel nice when we were on the cruise. I did get ready every day. I did enjoy that process. And I think it's given me something to think about for sure. And I think it's something that I will definitely I will consider it more often than I maybe would have otherwise.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So today, and then 9th episode is today, talking about, showing you guys the TED Talk and wrapping up the season. I told you guys I have a little bit of surprise next week. This will be technically the 10th, but it's not going to be on my channel. So I recorded an episode for Pushing Forward with Alicia, which is Alicia Anderson's podcast about invisible illness, where I tell my story. It's a little bit more, there's some different stuff shared in that than what I've shared before. So if you guys are at all interested, or even if you're not, go listen anyways. No, just kidding. There will be a link to her. Let's see. Yeah. So next week I will be sharing a very short video. I think I'm just going to create a video really quick in here and just say, hey, link below to go listen to or watch. I think it's listen. You can listen on YouTube too, to that episode on Alicia's podcast. So that is that. Okay. So moving on, I'm going to be taking 1 month off before returning for season 4. I have us tentatively scheduled to return on July 11th. It was originally going to be the first week of July, but that's a holiday week. So we're going to kick it off the following week. And the reasons for the break I was already intending on taking the rest of June off. But I was intending on also going an extra week beyond this week. So it was just going to be 2 weeks off, and now it's end up being 4. Reasons for the break are, so I have been, if you follow me on Instagram, which I know not everybody does, but if you do follow, I've shared that I just felt like I've taken a turn health-wise, and I couldn't really put my finger on it, but definitely have a stark decrease in energy. Meds aren't working as well as they used to. And falling asleep a lot during the day when my medication would cover me for that. And brain fog. Like that's another one where I was feeling really sharp for so long. And I'm not quite sure when it started. It seems like it started February or March, probably around TED Talk time, to be honest with you. I'm not sure, but I did some labs, and Mark already knows this, but my labs came back and I have some issues that I need to address in regards to my iron. So I've always ran low with iron, but it's my ferritin, which are my iron stores, which is, I guess, what your body, I'm still trying to understand how this all works, what your body accesses for use. And optimally, I think, don't quote me, but I think optimally we should be as women around up over 200. And if you dip under 30, it's considered urgent, this is not dangerous, but it's concerning. I'm at 5. And if you think optimally around 200. So I'm low, really low ferritin, which explains a lot. Couple things, went to one of my doctors today, and she said that I'm not getting enough oxygen to my cells. My cells, it's likely that my cells are very small, my red blood cells, and so I need to go see, I guess, a hematologist and get infusions and all this crap that I don't have time for and definitely don't have energy for. I can't afford to undo the progress I've made. I've come so far to go backwards right now in the interest of me being stubborn and wanting to push forward with work and this podcast. And it makes no sense because I've done this too many times to know that is literally the worst possible decision I could make for myself. I mean, I've way too much experience with this, which is why I didn't work for so long, because I kept doing that to myself. So that's part of the reason for the break, just to get that all taken care of. Oh, I got a cramp in my arm. We also, I don't know how this is going to work, but we had plans to create a second studio room. I don't know how that's going to work now, to be continued on that, but I was going to use the break to create that. That's a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
But that was when I was going to do that. So that would allow for more people, because this room only allows for basically 2, maybe 3. And then I have been approached for 2 different collaborations. The details haven't been confirmed, so a lot of it's still in the works, but stay tuned for that. And I think I'm going to be working out, getting all that figured out during the break as well. Deciding on if we're going to move forward. My plan is also to pull during this break 5 to 15 minute segments from prior episodes to put on YouTube. So it helps increase engagement and subscribers. Again, I'm trying to make it at this. So unfortunately, it takes a lot of to take a month off and not put anything up is it's basically part in the wording, but it's like creator suicide. It's not a great idea. So this is kind of my way around it. It's 5 to 15 minute, 5 hour long episodes, and just chunk them up like that. So let's say, from my personal episode when Katera interviewed me, I might pull out the part where I talk about my health, or the part where I talk about my family or my childhood, and just stick that up there, and do that for all of them though. Mm-hmm. So there's these chunks up there. So it just helps keep me in the game while I'm off. And okay, moving on to season 4. There's a possibility that we might be changing our formula up a bit. We may do a summer series with myself and a co-host to discuss relevant topics. This hasn't been confirmed, but it's part of one of the collaborations I was talking about, something that we're considering. So to be continued on that. I'm also sending out pitch emails and making calls as we speak to book guests. So between both efforts, we'll have to see which one shakes out better. Maybe I'll run a combination of them, kind of like I do with Katera. We'll have to just see. What I will say, though, is that I'm pretty confident we will be booking guests to discuss some of the topics I've mentioned in previous episodes. Breast implant illness. I had a couple people step up and said they would be willing to talk about that. Alpha females, I have my eye on a couple people, but nobody's actually stepped up to volunteer. GLP-1, semaglutide medication, still want to talk about that. Still want to know a couple people, need to approach them. And there's one I want to talk about that I didn't include called hustle culture, which is actually something that I thought about doing today. I have so many thoughts on hustle culture I'd like to talk about. Those are the ones I can almost guarantee will be in next season. Not 100%. They're not booked yet. Okay, so yeah, I have a few different candidates for those, some referrals for guests to talk about those subjects. We just weren't able to get them booked before the end of the season, so I hope to bring them to you guys next season. That is pretty much all I have. Anything I left out that you can think of?
Not that I can think of.
Thank you so much for being here to help me with this. I am terrible at talking to the camera. I lose my personality when I don't have somebody in front of me. Thank you guys so much for your support this season. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed now that we're on YouTube. If you're watching or listening and you're enjoying the podcast, please remember to subscribe to the channel.
Please share and subscribe.
Yes, hit the like button, leave us comments. All the things really helps.
Help the algorithm.
I was just going to say help the algorithm, and it signalizes to me that you're enjoying the content. It is a lot of work behind the scenes, so it's always like a little nod, like, hey, yeah, I see you.
There's a lot of effort that goes on. She puts her whole soul into this thing.
My whole self, put my whole back into it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's everything. Thank you for being here, babe. Thanks everyone for listening. We will see you guys back briefly next week, but officially for season 4 on July 11th. Have a great summer, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this conversation, please give it a like and leave me a comment. I want to know what you guys think. Also, if you're looking for more information about how to be a guest on the show, please go to our website at humanityunlockedpodcast.com. We only record shows in person, and we are located in Sacramento, California. Oh, and if you're not subscribed, make sure you tap that button so you can get updated on weekly episodes as they go live. Is that it? I think that's it. See you guys next time.